Don't get back on that plane. Your partner sabotaged it. So the millionaire makes his choice. Richard Thompson adjusted his tie as he walked toward his private jet at the executive airport in Teterboro. The meeting in Chicago could define the future of his company, but something in his chest tightened, as if he sensed this wouldn't be an ordinary day. That's when he felt a small hand tug at the sleeve of his suit. Turning around, he faced a boy of about 12, thin, wearing worn-out clothes, with desperate eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Mister, you can't get on that plane," the boy shouted, his voice echoing through the empty hangar. Richard stopped abruptly, studying the trembling child before him. His security team moved closer, ready to remove the intruder, but something in the boy's gaze made him raise a hand, signaling them to wait. "How did you get in here, kid?" Richard asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and impatience. "That doesn't matter now. What matters is your partner sabotaged the plane," Tyler said, pulling an old cracked phone from his pocket. "I have proof." The security guards chuckled softly, and even Richard smirked in disbelief. The idea that a street kid could have information about his company seemed absurd. "Listen here, kid," said Kevin, the head of security. "You need to leave now before things get ugly." "Wait!" Tyler shouted, frantically tapping on his phone. "I recorded everything. The man with the mustache, your partner, he paid the mechanic to tamper with the fuel." Richard's heart raced. Michael Roberts, his partner of 15 years, was the only one who knew the details of this trip. But how would a street kid know about Michael? "What man with a mustache?" Richard asked, his voice now more serious. "The one who comes here at night when he thinks no one's watching. He drives a black car with tinted windows and always sounds nervous on the phone." The description matched Michael perfectly. A chill ran through Richard, but he still resisted believing it. How could he trust a boy he didn't even know? "Show me that recording," Richard said, holding out his hand. Tyler hesitated for a moment, clutching the phone to his chest like his most prized possession. "First, you have to promise you won't get on that plane. I know you think I'm just some street kid, but I don't lie. My mom always said lying is for people with no character." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, back to the story. Something about the way the boy spoke of his mother struck Richard deeply. There was a sincerity in his eyes that couldn't be faked. Against all his business instincts, he decided to give the boy a chance. "Fine, show me the recording." Tyler turned on the phone, and despite the cracked screen, the audio came through clearly. Michael's voice was unmistakable. "Are you sure this will work? It has to look like a normal mechanical failure. When the plane has to make an emergency landing somewhere remote, Richard will miss the meeting, and I'll take over the business alone. No one will get hurt. It's just to delay him a few days, long enough for me to close the deal with the Americans." Richard's blood ran cold. The meeting in Chicago was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and Michael knew it. He also knew that if Richard didn't make it in time, he'd lose the deal to the competition. "Where did you get this?" Richard asked, his voice shaking with restrained anger. "I sleep in the hangar sometimes. The night guard lets me stay when it rains hard. Last night, I was hiding behind those containers when they showed up." "They?" "Your partner and a man in overalls. The mechanic, I think. They talked for almost an hour." Richard looked at his jet, which was being inspected by the technicians. His mind quickly calculated the possibilities. If Michael had really sabotaged the plane, he was taking an enormous risk. But if the boy was lying, "Kevin, call the head mechanic. Now." As he waited, Richard observed the boy more closely. Despite his scruffy appearance, there was something special about him. His eyes were intelligent, alert, and the way he spoke suggested he wasn't just an ordinary street kid. Joseph Sanders, the head mechanic, approached with a worried expression. He was a 50-year-old man who had worked for the company for over a decade. "Mr. Thompson, is something wrong?" "Joseph, I want you to run a full inspection on the plane's fuel, now." "But sir, we've already done all the standard checks." "Do it again, and this time I want a full chemical analysis." Joseph hesitated, clearly confused, but followed orders. Meanwhile, Richard approached the boy, who had sat on a toolbox, nervously swinging his legs. What's your name? Tyler Williams Parker. Tyler, why did you warn me? You don't even know me. The boy looked at him with a seriousness that didn't match his age. Because you always say good morning to me when you walk by here. Most people pretend I don't exist, but you always greet me. That means you're not like the other mean rich folks I've seen. Richard felt a pang in his heart. He didn't even remember greeting the boy, but apparently those small gestures had left a lasting impression. And where are your parents, Tyler? The boy's eyes filled with tears, but he quickly blinked them away. My mom worked her whole life as a cleaner. She got sick last year and never recovered. I never knew my dad. So you've been living on the street since then? I have nowhere else to go. I tried staying with my aunt, but her husband doesn't want me there. Said I'm just another mouth to feed. The story deeply moved Richard. He had lost his own parents young and knew what it was like to grow up without a stable family. The difference was that he had inherited his father's company, while Tyler had inherited nothing but loneliness. Joseph returned with a grim expression, carrying a container of fuel samples. Mr. Thompson, we found chemical additives in the tank that could cause engine failure after about 2 hours of flight. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Richard's world crumbled. Michael, his partner, his friend, the man he had trusted for 15 years, had tried to sabotage his plane. If it weren't for Tyler, he'd be flying to his professional ruin right now. There's more, sir, Joseph continued. Robert, one of our mechanics, didn't show up for work today. And last night, he was here after hours. Robert Carver, the one who's always complaining about his pay? Exactly. And lately, he's been spending more than he earns. He even showed up in a new car last week. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Michael had paid Robert to sabotage the plane, ensuring Richard would lose the most important deal of his career. Richard looked at Tyler, who was watching everything silently, and made a decision that would change their lives forever. Tyler, you saved me from losing everything. How can I repay you? The boy lowered his head, clearly uncomfortable with the question. I don't want money, sir. Just something to eat. It's been 2 days since I've had anything but water. Richard's heart broke. Here was a boy who had saved his company asking only for a meal. He decided right then that he would do much more than that. Kevin, cancel the flight. And call Mrs. Rose at the office. Tell her I need to speak with her urgently. Rose Anderson was the longest-serving employee in the company, having worked with Richard's father and knowing all the business secrets. If anyone could help him uncover the extent of Michael's betrayal, it would be her. And Tyler. Richard placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. You're having lunch with me today. We have a lot to talk about. As they walked toward the car, Richard couldn't stop thinking about how a chance encounter with a street kid had not only saved his company but possibly his life. Michael had accounted for everything, except the existence of a silent witness who had been sleeping in the hangar. The restaurant Richard chose was elegant but not flashy. He watched Tyler glance around in awe, clearly intimidated by the sophisticated setting. The waiter brought the menu, and Richard noticed the boy couldn't understand the French options. Bring us 2 executive lunch specials, Richard ordered, and a lemonade with sparkling water for the young man. I've never eaten in a place like this, Tyler whispered, staring at the silver fork with reverence. Tyler, tell me more about yourself. How did you learn to record conversations? My mom always said it was important to pay attention to things. She worked in offices and saw how powerful people plotted against each other. She taught me that information is power, especially for those who have nothing. She sounds like a very wise woman. She was. She's the one who taught me to read and write, even though she only made it to 4th grade. She said education was the only thing no one could take from me. Richard was impressed by the boy's articulation. Despite his rough circumstances, Tyler showed a natural intelligence many adults lacked. Richard's phone rang. It was Mrs. Rose. Mr. Richard, I got Kevin's message. Is something wrong? Rose, I need you to check all the company's financial transactions over the last 3 months, especially the accounts Michael has access to. Sir, may I ask why? I found out he's plotting something against the company. And Rose, do this discreetly. Don't mention it to anyone. Understood, I'll check everything in our systems. When he hung up, Richard noticed Tyler had stopped eating and was watching him intently. "You're worried," the boy observed. "I'm thinking about how many other things Michael might have done without me knowing. I can help." "How?" "I know all the places where people talk thinking no one's listening. The hangar's just one of them. If you want, I can keep an eye on him." The offer was tempting, but Richard hesitated. Using a kid as a spy felt wrong, even if it was to protect his own company. "Tyler, this could be dangerous. If Michael finds out you know about his plan, he won't even notice me. To people like him, a street kid is invisible." Sadly, Tyler was right. Social invisibility was an advantage Richard had never considered. As they ate, Tyler shared more about his life. He'd lost his mother 6 months ago, and since then had survived on small favors and the occasional kindness of strangers. He slept wherever he found shelter and ate when luck was on his side. "Why didn't you go to a shelter?" Richard asked. "I tried, but shelters have too many rules, and some of the older kids, they're not nice to the younger ones. On the streets I can run if I have to." The brutal reality of Tyler's life made Richard reflect on his own privileged existence. While he worried about billion-dollar meetings, a child fought daily just to survive. The phone rang again. It was Mrs. Rose, and her voice sounded alarmed. "Mr. Richard, I found something very strange. Over the past 2 months, Michael authorized several transfers to accounts I don't recognize. The amounts are small individually, but they add up to nearly $2 million. Richard's blood ran cold. $2 million was a lot of money, even for a company of his size." "What kind of accounts?" "Consulting firms I've never heard of. And there's more. He changed the system settings so these transfers wouldn't show up in the monthly reports you receive." "Mrs. Rose, print everything and keep it in a safe place. And don't access this information from the company computer. Use your personal laptop." "I already thought of that, sir. I'm using my own equipment." When he hung up, Richard realized Michael's betrayal ran much deeper than he'd imagined. This wasn't just about sabotaging a flight. It was a systematic scheme to divert funds. "Things are worse than I thought," he confessed to Tyler. "Do you want to talk about it?" The boy's simple question struck Richard. How long had it been since he'd had someone to confide in openly? Michael had been his only business confidant, and now he'd turned out to be his greatest enemy. "Tyler, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you ever feel lonely?" The boy thought for a moment before answering. "Every day. But I've learned that loneliness isn't the same as being alone. I can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely, or I can be alone but not feel abandoned." Tyler's wisdom impressed Richard once again. At 12, the boy had developed a philosophy of life that took many adults decades to grasp. "What about you?" Tyler asked. "Do you feel lonely?" The question caught Richard off guard. He'd devoted so much time to business that he'd never stopped to consider his own solitude. "I suppose I do. I never married, never had children. My only close relationships were work-related, and now I find out even those weren't real. My mom always said family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you when things get hard." Richard looked at the boy with new appreciation. In just a few hours, Tyler had shown more loyalty than Michael had in 15 years of partnership. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know you found out. We need to talk. Michael." Richard's heart raced. How did Michael know he'd uncovered the sabotage? "Tyler, I think we need to leave. Now." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. They hurried out of the restaurant. In the parking lot, Richard noticed a dark car parked across the street, windows tinted. His gut told him they were being watched. "Tyler, let's go to my office. We'll be safe there." During the drive, Richard explained the situation to the boy, who listened with remarkable focus for his age. "Mr. Richard, can I suggest something?" "Of course." "You shouldn't meet him alone. Someone who sabotages a plane is capable of anything." "You're right, but I need to find out what else he's done. Then let's outsmart him." The company building stood on Wall Street, in the heart of New York's financial district. When they arrived, Mrs. Rose waited at reception with a thick folder. Rose Anderson was 68 and had dedicated half her life to the company. A petite woman with neatly styled grey hair and eyes that missed nothing, she'd started as secretary to Richard's father and over the years had become the living memory of the organization. Mrs. Rose, this is Tyler. He's the one who uncovered Michael's sabotage. Rose looked at the boy with curiosity, showing no surprise or prejudice at his appearance. Nice to meet you, Tyler. Anyone who protects our Richard is welcome here. Nice to meet you, Mom. Rose, show me what you found. In Richard's office, Rose spread the documents across the table. The numbers painted a devastating picture. Michael had embezzled not $2, but nearly millions of dollars over the last 6 months. How did he manage this without me noticing? Richard asked, incredulous. He took advantage of your complete trust in him. The authorizations were done gradually, always justified as operational expenses or investments in new opportunities. Tyler studied the papers carefully, asking questions that surprised both Richard and Rose. Mrs. Rose, these companies where the money went, do they even exist? Good question, dear. I'll check the records. As Rose searched, the intercom buzzed. The secretary announced that Michael Roberts was in the lobby, insisting on speaking with Richard. Tell him I'm not here, Richard replied. Sir, he said if you don't come down, he'll come up. He seems upset. Tyler stepped closer to Richard. Let him come up, but we'll be ready. What do you have in mind? A recording. If he confessed over the phone, he might confess in person too. Rose, who had witnessed decades of business meetings, approved the idea. Tyler's right, and I'll stay here too. Michael won't do anything reckless in front of witnesses. Richard called Kevin, his head of security, asking him to stay alert, but not interfere unless necessary. 10 minutes later, Michael Roberts stormed into the office like a hurricane. He was a 45-year-old man, always well-dressed, with a neatly trimmed mustache and eyes that now revealed poorly concealed desperation. Richard, we need to talk. Alone. Mrs. Rose and Tyler stay. They already know everything. Michael looked at the boy with disdain and irritation. You're letting some street kid sit in on our conversation? That street kid saved my life today. Something you didn't do. Michael paled, realizing his sabotage had been uncovered. Richard, you don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Explain how my partner of 15 years decided to sabotage my plane and steal millions from the company. It wasn't theft. It was a temporary loan. A loan? Rose cut in, her voice sharp with indignation. Millions funneled through shell companies is a loan? Michael turned on Rose angrily. You shouldn't be meddling in the company's accounts. I've worked here longer than you, Michael Roberts, and unlike you, I've always been loyal to this family. Tyler stayed silent, observing the argument and discreetly recording everything on his phone. Michael moved closer to Richard, trying to regain his usual friendly tone. Richard, you have to understand. I was in a desperate situation. I have debts you can't even imagine. What kind of debt justifies betrayal? My wife, Celia, is sick, cancer. The treatments are outrageously expensive, and insurance doesn't cover everything. I needed the money to save her. The revelation left everyone silent. Richard was torn between compassion for his friend and anger at the betrayal. Michael, why didn't you come to me? We could have found a solution. Because you don't understand. You've never had to watch the person you love waste away day after day, knowing only money could save them. Rose stepped toward Michael with a sympathetic look. Michael, I lost my husband to cancer 10 years ago. I know how desperate it feels, but stealing is never the answer. I wasn't stealing. I was going to pay it all back after closing the deal with the Americans. And sabotaging the plane? Asked Tyler, speaking for the first time. How would that help your wife? Michael looked at the boy in surprise, as if he'd forgotten he was there. If Richard lost the Chicago contract, I could take over the negotiations and close the deal myself. With the commission, I'd pay off all the debts and even return the money to the company. Putting my life at risk, said Richard, his voice cold. No. Robert assured me it would just be a malfunction forcing an emergency landing, nothing serious. Michael, Mrs. Rose shook her head, disappointed. Do you really believe sabotaging a plane is a joke? Richard's phone rang. It was Kevin from the lobby. Mr. Richard, there's a woman here insisting on coming up. She says she's Mr. Michael's wife and that it's very urgent. Michael turned completely pale. No, Celia shouldn't be here. She's too weak. Let her come up, said Richard. A few minutes later, a woman in her 40s entered the office. Celia Roberts looked visibly worn by chemotherapy, wearing a colorful scarf that barely hid her lack of hair. Her eyes, however, shone with determination. Michael, I can't take these lies anymore, she said, ignoring everyone else in the room. Celia, you should be resting, while you destroy our lives with your reckless decisions. Celia turned to Richard. Mr. Thompson, my husband told you I'm sick, didn't he? Yes, and I'm so sorry. If there's anything I can do, there is. You can stop letting my husband use my illness as an excuse for his crimes. Michael tried to interrupt, but Celia continued. I found out a week ago that Michael has a gambling debt of nearly tens of millions of dollars. The loan sharks threatened our family. Michael thought that by stealing from the company and sabotaging your trip, he'd buy time and money to fix everything. The silence in the office was deafening. The truth was far worse than anyone had imagined. Gambling? Mrs. Rose asked, disbelieving. Online betting, casinos, horses. Michael's been addicted for years. I only found out when the men showed up at our house last week. Michael collapsed into a chair, his mask finally slipping. Celia, you shouldn't have told them. Shouldn't have? Michael, they said they'd hurt our kids if you don't pay. Richard realized the situation had escalated far beyond simple corporate betrayal. He was dealing with addiction, threats, and a family in danger. Tyler, who had been quietly observing everything, stepped closer to Celia. Mom, do you have children? 2. A girl who's 8 and a boy who's 6. And do they know their father's in danger? No. We tried to protect them. Tyler looked at Richard with an expression far too mature for his age. Mr. Richard, maybe we can help in a different way. What do you mean, Tyler? You said the meeting in Chicago is worth hundreds of millions, right? And Mr. Michael owes tens of millions to the loan sharks. Mathematically, there's a solution to this. Everyone in the office stared at the 12-year-old who had just summed up the situation with striking clarity. Tyler's right, said Mrs. Rose. Michael, if you'd told the truth from the start, we could have found a solution without hurting anyone. But now it's too late, Michael murmured. The loan sharks gave me until tomorrow. If I don't pay, they'll go after Celia and the kids. Celia began to cry silently. The situation seemed hopeless to everyone except Tyler, who kept thinking with his survivor's pragmatic logic. Mr. Richard, can you reschedule the meeting with the Americans? I can, but it's risky. They might walk away from the deal. What if you explained there was a family emergency? Wealthy folks understand these things, don't they? Rose smiled, impressed by the boy's insight. Tyler, you just had a brilliant idea. Richard began to see a possibility. Michael, there's still time to fix this, but it'll require you to be completely honest with me about everything. You still consider me your partner after all this? I consider you a desperate man who made terrible choices to protect his family. That's different from just being a bad person. Celia looked at Richard with gratitude. Mr. Thompson, how can we fix this? First, Michael will give me access to all the accounts where the millions are. Second, he'll introduce me to the loan sharks so we can negotiate a solution. Third, he'll enter a treatment program for gambling addiction. And in return? Michael asked, suspicious. In return, you keep your stake in the company, but under supervision, and I'll make sure your family stays safe. Tyler spoke up again. And Mr. Michael will have to tell his kids everything. Lies in a family only make things worse. Celia looked at the boy with admiration. How old are you, sweetheart? 12, ma'am. And where does all this wisdom come from? The streets, ma'am. Out there, you learn fast that lies and secrets always bring bigger trouble later. Michael looked at Tyler with respect for the first time. You're right, kid. I should have told the truth from the start. Rose, who had been watching the whole exchange, stepped closer to Richard. Mr. Richard, May I suggest something? Of course, Rose. How about we hire Tyler as a special consultant? He has a perspective none of us do. Consultant? Tyler asked, confused. Someone who helps make important decisions, Richard explained. And Rose is right. You see things we don't. But I don't know anything about businesses. You know about people, Celia said. And in the end, all businesses are made of people. The conversation was interrupted by a loud knock at the door. Kevin walked in with a worried expression. Mr. Richard, there are 2 men downstairs saying they're here for Mr. Michael. They don't seem like nice people. Michael's blood ran cold. They found me. Who are they? Richard asked. The loan sharks. They must have realized I didn't get the money today. Tyler went to the window and looked down. 2 men in black suits standing by a dark car. One's leaning against it smoking. The other's posted in front of the building. They won't come in here, Kevin said. But if Mr. Michael steps out... Mr. Richard, Celia grabbed his arm desperately. Please don't let my husband go out there. Richard thought quickly. The situation had become far more complicated than a simple business betrayal. Kevin, call Dr. Anthony here, now. Anthony Foster had been the company's lawyer for over 20 years, specializing in messy situations. Tyler, you said you're good at reading people. What do you see when you look at those men downstairs? Tyler went back to the window and studied them carefully. They don't seem too bright, drawing too much attention, smoking in front of the building, talking loud. Really dangerous people are more discreet. What does that mean? That maybe they're more about scaring than hurting, at least for now. Rose admired the boy's analysis. Tyler, have you been watching people for long? On the streets, you have to watch to survive. Knowing who's really dangerous and who's just pretending is life or death. 30 minutes later, Dr. Anthony arrived at the office. He was a 60-year-old man with white hair and decades of experience handling delicate situations involving businessmen and dangerous debts. Richard quickly explained the situation, and the lawyer listened carefully. Michael, how much exactly do you owe these people? Tens of millions of dollars. The interest keeps rising every day. And are they a structured organization? I don't know. I just know they're dangerous and don't take no for an answer. Dr. Anthony thought for a moment. Richard, are you really willing to help Michael after everything that's happened? I am, but I want guarantees this will never happen again. Then I'll propose a legal solution. Michael will transfer his entire stake in the company to a trust controlled by you. He'll remain an employee with a fixed salary, but no access to financial decisions. His dividends will pay off the loan sharks and cover Celia's treatment. And how long would it take to settle everything? Asked Celia. With the company's current profits, about 2 years. But Michael would have to give up any luxuries during that time. I accept, Michael said immediately. Anything to protect my family. Tyler, who had stayed quiet during the legal discussion, asked, what about the men downstairs? How do we explain it'll take 2 years? Dr. Anthony smiled. Good question, young man. For that, we'll offer a substantial upfront payment. Richard, could you advance $1 million as a show of good faith? I can, but I want to be part of the negotiation. That's not a good idea, said Kevin. These kinds of people might try to use you as leverage if they find out you're a millionaire. Tyler spoke up again. What if I went along? They won't even notice I exist. Absolutely not, said Richard. I won't put a child in danger. Mr. Richard, I've been through worse on the streets, and besides, I can be useful. How? I can record the conversation and see if they're telling the truth or trying to trick you. Rose supported the idea. The boy's right, and if something goes wrong, he can call for help. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. After much debate, they decided Dr. Anthony and Michael would go down to negotiate while Tyler stayed nearby. Out of sight, recording everything. Richard would remain in the office with Kevin and Rose as backup. Celia hugged her husband before he left. Michael, be honest with them. Lies will only make things worse. I know, love. I won't make the same mistakes. The tension in the office was palpable as they waited for news. Rose made coffee for everyone, trying to ease the anxious atmosphere. Mrs. Rose, said Richard. In 40 years working here, have you ever seen anything like this? Once. Your father had trouble with suppliers who were questionable, but it was resolved with talk and fair compensation. He never told me that. He protected you from the messier side of business, said he wanted you to grow up believing the business world was clean. The revelation made Richard reflect on how much else his father had hidden to preserve his innocence. 30 minutes later, Tyler returned to the office, his eyes bright with adrenaline. "How did it go?" asked Celia anxiously. "It worked. They accepted the upfront payment and agreed to receive the rest over 2 years, as long as it's with normal interest, not loan shark rates." "And how did you know they were serious?" asked Richard. "They used their real names during the conversation. People who lie always make up fake names. Plus, they seemed relieved to have a solution that didn't involve violence." Rose shook her head in admiration. "Tyler, where did you learn to read people like that?" "By surviving, Mrs. Rose. On the streets, you quickly learn that most people who seem bad are just scared or angry. The truly dangerous ones are those who appear calm and polite." Michael and Dr. Anthony returned with expressions of relief. "It's settled," announced the lawyer. "They were more professional than we expected. When they realized there was a real solution to the problem, they even became cordial." "And now?" asked Celia. "Now Michael signs the papers transferring his shares to the trust fund, and we start working on his recovery, both financially and personally." Richard turned to Tyler. "What about you? Will you accept working with us?" "Working how?" "As a special consultant. You have a natural talent for solving problems and understanding people. The company needs that." "But I don't have an education." "That's why you'll study. School during the day, work here a few afternoons a week. What do you think?" Tyler looked around the office at the people who had, in just one day, become closer to him than anyone else he'd known. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "If I accept, you won't abandon me when I'm no longer useful?" The question stung Richard. It was clear Tyler had been abandoned so many times he'd lost the ability to fully trust. "Tyler," Celia stepped closer to the boy, "real family doesn't abandon, and you just proved your family." "How?" "You risked your safety to protect people you barely knew. That's what family does." Mrs. Rose agreed. "Sweetheart, you didn't just save the company. You saved Michael and Celia's marriage, too. We'll forever be grateful to you." Tyler lowered his head, clearly emotional but trying to stay composed. "Okay, I'll do it, but on one condition." "What?" asked Richard. "I want to help other kids like me. When I learn more about business, I want to use it to help street children." The silence in the office was broken by Mrs. Rose's emotional laugh. "Sweetheart, you just proved why you belong here. Only good people think of others when they get an opportunity." That night, after everyone had left, Richard and Tyler stayed alone in the office, talking about the future. "Tyler, aren't you afraid all this might be temporary?" "I am. But my mom always said fear shouldn't stop us from trying to be happy." "She sounds like an extraordinary woman." She was. "And you know what else she'd say?" "What?" "When God closes a door, he always opens a window, but you gotta have the courage to jump." Richard smiled, realizing he hadn't just found an employee, but perhaps the son he never had. 3 months later, routine had settled in surprisingly well. Tyler lived in a small but comfortable apartment Richard had rented for him, close to the company. In the mornings, he attended a private school where, despite initial struggles, he showed impressive learning ability. In the afternoons, he worked at the company, observing meetings, asking questions, and offering perspectives that often surprised seasoned executives. His knack for reading people and situations had become legendary among the staff. Michael was in treatment for gambling addiction and had become a model employee. The fear of losing his family had been a wake-up call that completely changed him. Celia, meanwhile, responded well to medical treatment and had regained some quality of life. The company thrived under the new dynamic. Tyler's presence had brought a humanity to the business that reflected in every aspect of the organization. One Friday afternoon, Richard was reviewing contracts when Tyler walked into the office with a worried expression. "Mr. Richard, can I talk to you?" "Of course, anytime." What happened? There's something strange going on in the sales department. What kind of thing? Mr. Edward, the manager, has been very nervous lately, and I overheard him on the phone talking about speeding up the schedule and before anyone gets suspicious. Richard stopped reading the contracts. Edward Roberts was Michael's cousin and had been hired 6 months ago, right after the loan shark scandal. Are you sure about what you heard? Yes, and there's more. Yesterday I saw him leaving the building with a folder that wasn't company property. It had Fair Competition Inc. written on the side. Richard's heart raced. Fair Competition was one of their biggest rivals in the national market. Tyler, do you think he could be leaking information? I don't know, but my gut says when someone acts suspicious and talks about secret schedules, something's wrong. Richard picked up the phone and called Rose. Rose, I need you to come to my office, and discreetly bring all the sales reports from the last 3 months. 20 minutes later, Rose arrived with the requested documents. Her expression was grim. Mr. Richard, I've already looked over the numbers before bringing them up. We have a problem. What kind of problem? In the last 2 months, we've lost 6 major contracts. All of them went to Fair Competition, and in every case, they submitted proposals almost identical to ours, just slightly cheaper. Like they knew exactly what we were charging, Tyler added. Exactly. And there's more. Edward had access to all those proposals before they were sent to clients. Richard felt betrayed again. After the issue with Michael, he'd tried to be more cautious with family hires, but apparently he hadn't been cautious enough. What do we do? Rose asked. First, we confirm our suspicions. Tyler, can you keep an eye on Edward? I can, but this time I want to do it differently. How so? Instead of just watching, what if we set a trap? Rose and Richard exchanged impressed glances. The boys' strategies were getting more sophisticated by the month. What kind of trap? Rose asked. We create a fake proposal for a client that doesn't exist. If Fair Competition submits a similar bid, we'll know someone's leaking information. Tyler, that's brilliant, Richard said. But how do we make a convincing fake client? Leave it to me. On the streets, I learned how to spin convincing stories. I'll create a fictional company that needs our services. Over the next few days, Tyler and Rose worked together to create the fictional company New Horizons Construction. They built a basic website, a business address, and even a phone number that redirected to Tyler's cell. The plan was simple. Tyler, pretending to be the assistant of the fictional company's director, would contact their firm requesting a proposal for a multi-million-dollar project. The proposal would be prepared by Edward, and if he was indeed leaking information, Fair Competition should make a similar offer within days. The following Monday, Tyler called the sales department. Good morning. I'd like to speak to the sales manager. One moment, please. Edward speaking. Mr. Edward, my name is Tyler. I'm the assistant director at New Horizons Construction. We're interested in a proposal for a large project. What kind of project? A business complex worth tens of millions of dollars. Our director would like to receive proposals by Thursday. Of course, can I schedule a meeting for tomorrow? Perfect. Our office is at 1254 Madison Avenue, Suite 305. Tyler had chosen the address of a real commercial building, but room 305 was actually a small accounting office whose owner was a friend of Rose and had agreed to help. On Tuesday, Edward Roberts showed up at the fake office where Tyler greeted him, playing the role of an executive assistant. The boy had dressed formally and adopted a professional demeanor that even impressed himself. Mr. Tyler, it's a pleasure to meet you. The pleasure is ours, Mr. Edward. Unfortunately, our director had to travel, but he authorized me to receive the proposal. For 40 minutes, Edward Roberts detailed the company's services, unaware that Tyler was recording him. The boy asked smart questions and demonstrated technical knowledge he had acquired during the months working with Richard. When can we expect the formal proposal? Tyler asked. By Thursday, as requested. It will be a very competitive proposal. Excellent. Just so you know, we've also requested proposals from other companies. It's our standard procedure. Of course, I completely understand. I'm confident our proposal will be the best. On Thursday, as promised, Edward Roberts delivered a detailed proposal for tens of millions of dollars. Tyler thanked him professionally and said the director would review all proposals before making a decision. On Friday, Rose called Fair Competition Inc., pretending to be from New Horizons Construction. "I'd like to request a proposal for a business project." "What a coincidence," said the receptionist. "We already have a proposal ready for New Horizons. Our sales director was expecting your call." Rose's heart raced. The trap had worked. "Can you email it?" "Of course. The proposal is for tens of millions for the business complex on the south side." Rose hung up with a mix of sadness and anger. Edward was indeed selling company information to the competition. In Richard's office, the three reviewed the evidence. "There's no doubt left," said Rose. "Edward was leaking our proposals, and Fair Competition used them to offer slightly lower prices." "How much money have we lost because of this?" asked Richard. "Based on the contracts I could track, roughly hundreds of millions of dollars in the last 6 months. Richard felt the weight of family betrayal again. First Michael, now Edward. "Tyler, once again, you've saved the company." "How can I thank you?" "No need to thank me, Mr. Richard. We're family now, and family protects each other." The boy's emotional maturity never failed to impress Richard. In less than a year, Tyler had become not just a valuable employee, but also the company's moral compass. "What do we do about Edward?" asked Rose. "We'll confront him, but this time I want to do it differently." "How so?" asked Tyler. "I want to give him the chance to confess and redeem himself, just like I did with Michael." "Mr. Richard," Rose hesitated. "Edward wasn't in a desperate situation like Michael. He did this out of pure greed." "That's true, but everyone deserves a second chance." "Tyler, what do you think?" The boy thought carefully before answering. "I think we should talk to him, but this time with witnesses and a recording. If he lies or tries to deny it, then we take stricter measures." The following Monday, Edward Roberts was called into Richard's office. He found not just his boss, but also Rose, Tyler, and Dr. Anthony. "Edward, please have a seat." "Is something wrong, Mr. Richard?" "You tell me. Is there anything you'd like to share about your work here?" Edward looked around nervously, clearly uncomfortable with so many people present. "I don't understand the question." "Then I'll be more direct. You're selling our company's information to Fair Competition Inc." Kevin's face instantly turned pale. That's absurd," Tyler interjected calmly. "Mr. Kevin, last Thursday you submitted a $14.8 million proposal to New Horizons Construction. By Friday, Fair Competition Inc. had an identical proposal for $14.5 million. How do you explain that?" "It must be a coincidence." "A coincidence?" Mrs. Rose showed a folder with documents. "A coincidence that happened with 6 different projects over the last 2 months. Dr. Anthony spoke up. "Kevin, lying now will only make your legal situation worse. We have enough evidence for both criminal and civil lawsuits." Under pressure, Edward Roberts broke down. "Fine, I confess, but you don't understand the pressure I was under." "What pressure?" asked Richard. "After what happened to my cousin Michael, everyone in the family kept pushing me to do something. While I was still with the company, they said I'd be a fool not to take advantage of the opportunity. The revelation shocked everyone. The pressure didn't come from debts or need, but from twisted family expectations." "Your family encouraged you to steal?" asked Rose, incredulous. "Not steal. They said it was just seizing opportunities, that all big companies leak information anyway, that it was normal." Tyler shook his head. "Mr. Kevin, do you really believe stealing information isn't stealing?" I didn't think of it that way at the time." "And how much money did you make from this?" asked Dr. Anthony. "Millions of dollars. For every proposal I passed along, they paid me $50,000. Richard quickly calculated. Kevin had sold out the company for a relatively small sum, causing $80 million in damages. "Kevin, do you realize you caused losses 200 times greater than what you gained?" "I didn't know it would be that much." Tyler intervened again. "Mr. Kevin, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead." "Do you have children?" "Yes. 2 teenage sons." "And would you want them to know their father is a thief?" The boy's direct question hit Kevin like a punch. I'm not a thief. Sir, you took information that wasn't yours and sold it to someone else. If that's not theft, what is? The office silence was broken by Edward's sobs. You're right. I am a thief. And worse, I'm a thief who betrayed the trust of those who gave me a chance. Richard looked at the broken man before him, feeling a mix of anger and pity. Kevin, I'll give you the same opportunity I gave Michael. Confess everything, return the money, and accept the consequences. In exchange, I won't press criminal charges. What about my job? Your job here is over, but I'll provide a neutral recommendation letter so you can start fresh elsewhere. Kevin looked at Tyler curiously. Can I ask the boy something? Go ahead. How did you figure it out? By watching. You changed your behavior these past weeks. Became more nervous, more defensive. When someone acts like that, they usually have something to hide. And how old are you? 12. Kevin shook his head in disbelief. Her 12-year-old boy saw what no one else noticed. It's not about age, said Tyler. It's about paying attention to people and caring what happens around you. 2 weeks later, Edward Roberts had returned the millions of dollars and signed a confidentiality agreement. Richard, keeping his promise, provided a recommendation letter that allowed Kevin to find work at a smaller firm. Kevin's family, who had pressured him into betrayal, was furious about the dismissal, but Richard stood firm in his decision. Mr. Richard, Tyler said one afternoon, can I say something about Mr. Kevin's family? Of course. I don't think they learned their lesson. They still believe the problem was him getting caught, not him stealing. How did you come to that conclusion? Yesterday, I saw his wife at the bakery near the office. She was on the phone talking about how you were too harsh on him and that everyone does those things. Tyler's observation worried Richard. If the family hadn't learned from their mistake, they might try something similar in the future. Tyler, do you think we should worry about revenge? No. They're the type who talk big but don't act. But I think you should be more careful when hiring relatives of employees. Why? Because sometimes the person is good, but their family pressures them into doing wrong. It's better to avoid that kind of temptation. Tyler's practical wisdom continued to impress everyone at the company. Mrs. Rose had started calling him our little philosopher, and even seasoned employees sought his opinion on complex situations. That evening, Richard and Tyler had dinner together at the boys' apartment. It was a tradition they'd established on Fridays, a time to talk about the week and plan for the future. Tyler, in almost a year working with us, you've saved the company 3 times. From Michael, from the loan sharks, and now from Edward. It wasn't just me, Mr. Richard, it was a team effort. But you were at the center of every solution. There's something special about you. Tyler pushed his food around his plate, clearly uncomfortable with praise. Mr. Richard, can I ask you something? Always. Aren't you afraid I might betray you one day too? The question caught Richard off guard. Why would you do that? I don't know. But everyone you've trusted has ended up betraying you. Michael, Kevin. What guarantee do you have that I'm different? Richard set his fork down and looked straight into the boy's eyes. Tyler, do you want to know the difference between you and them? Yes. They betrayed me when things got hard. You could have stolen from me from the very first day you joined the company. You've had access to valuable information. You know our systems, you know our secrets. But it never even crossed your mind to use them against me. How do you know? Because you have something they didn't. Character. And character can't be bought or taught. It comes from within. Tyler lowered his head, moved. My mom always said character is what you do when no one's watching. She was right. And she raised an extraordinary son. Just then, Richard's phone rang. It was Michael, who now called regularly to update him on his treatment progress. Richard, how are you? Good, Michael, and you? Better every day. It's been 2 months since I gambled a single penny, and Celia is responding really well to treatment. I'm glad to hear that. Richard, can I say something? Of course. Thank you for not giving up on me. Your second chance changed my life and saved my family. Michael, everyone deserves the chance to make things right. And Tyler, how is he? Richard looked at the boy, who smiled faintly as he listened. Tyler is becoming an extraordinary young man. He's doing well in school and learning more about the company every day. He saved my family too, you know. If he hadn't uncovered the plane scheme, I'd probably be in jail right now. After the call, Richard and Tyler kept talking about the future. The boy had fully adjusted to his new life, but Richard could tell he still carried emotional scars from his time on the streets. "Tyler, do you have nightmares?" "Sometimes. I dream that I wake up and all of this was a dream, that I'm back on the streets, hungry and cold." "And when you wake up?" "It takes me a few minutes to believe it's real, that I have a warm bed, food in the fridge, and people who care about me. That's normal. Big changes always bring uncertainty." "Mr. Richard, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." "Sometimes I leave the apartment at dawn and walk through the streets where I used to live, not to go back but to remember where I came from." "Why?" "So, I never forget there are many people like I used to be, and so one day I can help them." The boy's determination to help others in the same circumstances he had lived through deeply moved Richard. "Tyler, how about we start planning this now?" "What do you mean?" "A company project to help homeless children. You could be the coordinator." Tyler's eyes lit up for the first time since Richard had known him. "Really? We could do that?" "We can do anything we want. The company is ours." "Ours?" "Tyler, you've saved this company more than once. It's only fair you share in the profits." "Mr. Richard, I don't want to be a partner out of gratitude." "It's not gratitude. It's recognizing your worth. You've proven you have the talent and integrity to be a true businessman." That night, Richard couldn't sleep, thinking about how his life had changed since meeting Tyler at the hangar. The boy hadn't just saved his company, he'd saved his soul. In the following months, Tyler threw himself into the project for homeless children with the same dedication he showed in everything he did. He visited shelters, spoke with social workers, and developed a comprehensive program that included education, meals, and job training. The New Horizons project, named in honor of the fictional company that had helped expose Edward Roberts, was launched 6 months later with a ceremony attended by business leaders, officials, and the press. During the event, Tyler gave a speech that moved everyone present. "My name is Tyler Williams Parker. A year and a half ago, I lived on the streets of New York. Today, I'm here launching a project to help other kids going through what I went through. This was only possible because someone decided to believe in me when everyone else doubted. Mr. Richard Thompson didn't just give me an opportunity, he gave me a family. Now, we want to give the same chance to other children, because everyone deserves a second shot at life." The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Richard, with tears in his eyes, watched the boy who had become the son he never had. Mrs. Rose, now 70 but still active in the company, approached Richard during the event. "Mr. Richard, in over 40 years working here, I've never seen anything as beautiful as what's happening today." "Rose, Tyler hasn't just transformed the company, he's transformed all of us. He has something special, a mix of intelligence, kindness, and determination that's rare to find. And to think I almost missed the chance to meet him because I was in a rush to get to the airport. The best things in life happen when we least expect them." A year after the launch of the New Horizons project, the company had helped over 200 homeless children off the streets and into new opportunities. Tyler, now 14, had become a respected figure in New York's business scene, invited to speak at events and conferences. Despite his success, he stayed grounded and never forgot his roots. One December afternoon, Richard found Tyler in the office reviewing financial reports with the focus of a seasoned executive. "Tyler, how are the project's numbers?" "Very good, Mr. Richard. This month we got 15 more kids off the streets, and 3 of the boys we helped last year already have jobs." "And you? How are you feeling?" "Fulfilled. You know the best part of what we do?" "What?" "Seeing the moment when a child realizes they can have a different future. It's the same feeling I had when you decided to trust me." Richard smiled, remembering that day in the hangar when a desperate boy had saved his life and his company. "Tyler, can I tell you something?" "Of course. When I was young, my father always said a man's success isn't measured by what he achieves, but by what he leaves behind for the world. And what do you think you're leaving behind? You, and everything you'll achieve in the future. Tyler smiled, the same shy but determined smile that had won Richard over from the very first day. Mr. Richard, do you know what my biggest dream is? What? That one day, some child will look at me the same way I look at you, as someone who believed in them when no one else did. I'm sure that's already happening. That evening, during their now traditional Friday dinner, Richard made an announcement that would change both their futures forever. Tyler, I want to make something official that's been true for a long time. What, Mr. Richard? I want to legally adopt you. I want you to be my son, not just in my heart, but on paper too. Tyler stopped eating and looked at Richard with tear-filled eyes. Are you sure? I am. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I want the world to know you're my son. But you know I'll never forget my real mother, right? I don't want you to forget. Your mother did an amazing job raising you. I just want to continue what she started. Then yes, I'll be your son. They embraced, sealing a family born from the most unlikely circumstances, but stronger than many traditional ones. 2 years later, Tyler Williams Thompson, his legal name after the adoption, had become one of the country's most promising young entrepreneurs. At 16, he was already managing the New Horizons project with the efficiency of a seasoned executive and studying business through private lessons to supplement his formal education. Richard's company thrived like never before, having diversified its operations to include social responsibility as one of its core pillars. Tyler's story had become a national example of how opportunities can transform lives. Michael Roberts, fully recovered from his gambling addiction, had been promoted to operations director, a role he carried out with exemplary dedication. Celia was in complete remission from cancer, and the couple had renewed their wedding vows in a simple but moving ceremony. Edward Roberts had found work at a smaller company where he demonstrated professional competence, but had no further contact with Richard or Tyler after his dismissal. Mrs. Rose, now retired but still consulting for the company, watched with pride at the transformation she'd witnessed over the years. Mr. Richard, she said during one of her visits, do you remember what it was like before Tyler came? Barely. It feels like a completely different life. It was. You used to live only for work. Now you live for something much bigger. Tyler taught me that true success isn't what you accumulate, but what you share. One Monday morning, 2.5 years after their first meeting in the hangar, Richard and Tyler were walking through the company when they were surprised by an unexpected visitor. A well-dressed but nervous-looking man in his 40s waited for them in the lobby. Mr. Thompson, my name is Robert Carver. Richard recognized the name immediately. It was the mechanic who had sabotaged his plane at Michael's request. Robert, what are you doing here? I came to ask for a chance, sir. I know I don't deserve it after what I did, but I've been unemployed for 2 years, and I need to start over. Tyler observed the man carefully, applying his people-reading skills honed over the years. Why can't you find a job? The young man asked. Because of what I did here. The news spread in the aviation industry, and no one wants to hire a mechanic who sabotaged a plane. And the money Michael paid you? Richard asked. I spent it all. I thought finding another job would be easy, but... Robert hung his head in shame. Tyler stepped closer. Mr. Robert, may I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you regret what you did? Every day. I can't sleep knowing I could have caused an accident. And if Mr. Richard gives you another chance, what guarantees you won't repeat the mistake? Nothing, just my word. I know it doesn't mean much after what I did, but it's all I have. Richard was torn. On one hand, Robert had put his life at risk. On the other, the man seemed genuinely remorseful and in desperate straits. Tyler, what do you think? I believe everyone deserves a second chance, but this time with strict supervision. Robert, Richard said, I'll give you an opportunity. But you'll work under constant supervision, with a starting wage, and you'll have to earn back everyone's trust here. Robert knelt right there in the reception area, tears in his eyes. Mr. Thompson, I swear I won't let you down this time. Don't swear to me, Tyler said. Swear to your family and to yourself. Robert's hiring stirred controversy among the company's employees. Many questioned Richard's decision, but he stood firm, explaining that the company had become a place of second chances. Mrs. Rose, though retired, made sure to weigh in. "Mr. Richard, are you sure about this?" "Rose, if we hadn't given Michael a second chance, he'd be ruined. If we hadn't given Tyler a chance, he'd still be on the streets. Why should Robert be different? Because Robert wasn't desperate when he sabotaged the plane. He did it out of greed. And now he's paying the price. 2 years unemployed, his family struggling. I think he's learned his lesson." Tyler, who had been quietly observing the discussion, spoke up. "Mrs. Rose, may I suggest something?" "Of course, dear. How about a 6-month probation period? If he shows real change, we keep him. If not, at least we gave him the chance." Tyler's wisdom in finding balanced solutions to complex situations never failed to impress the adults around him. 6 months later, Robert had proven himself an exemplary employee, punctual, dedicated, and meticulous in his work. He had regained his colleagues' respect through consistent effort. "Mr. Richard," Robert said in a private conversation, "I want to thank you for the opportunity you gave me. Robert, you earned your place here through your own hard work. I know, but I want you to know I've completely changed. I have a little girl now, and I want to set an example for her. And you are. Congratulations." Tyler, who had followed Robert's progress, approached him. "Mr. Robert, can I tell you something?" "Of course, Tyler. You taught me an important lesson." "Me? What lesson?" "That people can truly change when they want to. You proved that a mistake doesn't define a person forever." "Thank you, Tyler. Coming from you, that means a lot." Robert's transformation became yet another example in the company of how the second chance policy could yield positive results when applied wisely and with proper oversight. On a December evening, 3 years after their first meeting, Richard and Tyler were in the office finalizing the annual reports when the boy, now a 15-year-old young man, made a reflection that would forever mark Richard's memory. "Dad," Tyler had started calling him that after the adoption, "do you remember what you told me on the first day we met?" "What?" "That I had saved your life. But really, you were the one who saved mine." "How so?" "You saved me from a life with no prospects, no love, no family. You gave me not just a roof and food, but dignity and purpose. Tyler, you earned all that through your own merit. I earned it because you believed in me, when even I didn't believe in myself." Richard looked at the young man who had become his son and felt a paternal pride he never imagined he could experience. "Tyler, there's something I want to tell you." "What?" "Before you came into my life, I thought success was about money and power. You taught me that true success is about relationships and the impact we have on people's lives." "And what else did I teach you?" Tyler smiled playfully. "You taught me that family isn't just about blood, but about choice, about being there when someone needs you, about believing when no one else does." At that moment, the phone rang. It was Michael, now fully rehabilitated and working as the director of operations. "Richard, sorry to call so late, but I wanted to share some news." "What is it?" "Celia was having routine tests and she's pregnant." The joy in Michael's voice was contagious. After everything they'd been through, the couple would be blessed with another child. "Michael, that's wonderful news. And do you know what we'll name the baby if it's a boy?" "What?" "Tyler, in honor of the boy who saved our family." Tyler, who had overheard the conversation, was visibly moved. Knowing his presence had impacted Michael and Celia's lives so deeply that they wanted to honor him was profoundly touching. After the call, Richard and Tyler sat in silence for a few minutes, absorbing the magnitude of how their lives had intertwined with others in such a positive way. "Dad, can I make a confession?" "Always. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and stare out the window, thinking about what my life would have been like if I hadn't met you that day." "And what do you think?" "That maybe I wouldn't even be here. Life on the streets is really hard, especially in winter. A lot of kids don't make it." The revelation left Richard with a lump in his throat. The thought of losing Tyler to the hardships of street life was almost unbearable. "But you're here, and you'll stay here, always." "I know. And you know what's the most amazing part?" "What?" "That our story started with you being robbed by Michael, betrayed by Kevin, and ended with you gaining a family and helping hundreds of kids. It's like the bad things happened to bring even greater good." Tyler's perspective, how adversity could lead to positive outcomes, showed an emotional maturity beyond his years. In the following months, the company continued to grow, but now with a greater purpose. The New Horizons project had expanded to other cities, and Tyler had become the young face of corporate social responsibility in the United States. In an interview with a business magazine, the reporter asked Tyler what the secret to his success at such a young age was. "There's no secret," Tyler replied. "It's about observation, hard work, and most of all, people who believe in you." "And what advice would you give to other young people in tough situations?" "Never stop dreaming. I lived on the streets and dreamed of having a family. Today, I have the best dad in the world and a company that helps other kids achieve their dreams too." And for business owners thinking about developing social projects, they should do it out of love, not for marketing. Children can tell when the interest is genuine. The interview made waves across the country, and Tyler received invitations to speak at universities and business events nationwide. Richard watched with pride as his son had grown not just professionally but also as a person. Tyler kept his feet on the ground despite his success, never forgetting where he came from and always looking for ways to give back to the opportunities he'd been given. One Saturday morning, 4 years after they'd met, Richard and Tyler were having coffee when a letter arrived addressed to Tyler. The sender was Aunt Mary's Institute, an orphanage in Philadelphia. "What could this be?" Tyler asked, opening the letter. The letter was from a 10-year-old girl named Brianna, who had read about Tyler online and wanted to share her story. She had lived at the orphanage for 3 years and dreamed of studying and helping other children, just like Tyler did. "Hi, Tyler," Brianna wrote. "My name is Brianna and I'm 10 years old. I read about you online and was so happy to hear that someone who went through hard times like me found a good family. I've been at the orphanage for 3 years and I study really hard so one day I can help other kids too. Can you come visit me sometime? I'd love to meet you. Love, Brianna." The letter deeply moved Tyler. "Dad, can I go visit her?" "Of course. In fact, what if we expanded the New Horizons project to include orphanages too? That would be amazing." The following weekend, Richard and Tyler traveled to Philadelphia to meet Brianna and Aunt Mary's Institute. The orphanage housed 50 children between the ages of 5 and 17, all waiting for adoption or to come of age. Brianna was a bright, determined girl who reminded Tyler of himself at 10. She proudly showed them her school notebooks and talked about her dream of becoming a teacher. "Tyler, is it true you used to live on the streets?" "It's true, Brianna." "Weren't you scared?" "I was very scared, but my mom always said fear shouldn't stop me from trying to be happy." "And are you happy now?" "Very happy. I have a family, I work doing something I love, and I can help others." Brianna smiled, her eyes shining with hope. "So I can be happy one day too?" "Of course. And you know why?" "Why?" "Because you're smart, determined, and have a good heart. Those are the most important things to succeed in life." During the visit, Tyler met other children at the orphanage, each with their own story, but all united by the dream of having a family and a better future. On the way back to New York, Tyler was quieter than usual. "Dad, I want to do something special for Aunt Mary's Institute." "What do you have in mind?" "I want to create a sponsorship program. Business owners in New York can sponsor kids from the orphanage, pay for private school, clothes, supplies, and most importantly, give them attention and care." "Tyler, that's a brilliant idea, but it'll take a lot of work to organize." "I know, but it's worth it. Those kids just need a chance like I did." Richard looked at his son with renewed admiration. At 15, Tyler already had a social entrepreneurial vision many adults lacked. "Then let's get started. But this time, you'll lead the project from beginning to end." "Really? Really?" It's time for you to fly on your own. 3 months later, the sponsorship program launched under the name Extended Family. Tyler organized everything himself: presentations for business owners, a child tracking system, and events to bring sponsors and kids together. On the day of the launch, held in the company's auditorium, an audience of 100 business people interested in joining the program was present. Tyler gave a presentation that moved everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, you're here today because you've managed to build success in your lives. You've had opportunities, education, family support. Now imagine if you'd been born without those advantages. If you'd had to fight alone since childhood for a place in the world. That's what these 50 children face every day. They don't want handouts. They want opportunity. They want someone to believe in them like my father believed in me. You can be that person in a child's life. By the end of the presentation, all 50 business people present volunteered to mentor at least one child. The project was a complete success, even before it began. Brianna was one of the first to be mentored by a cosmetics entrepreneur who identified with the girl's determination to study. Within a few months, Brianna was attending one of the best private schools in Philadelphia and regularly visiting New York for meetings with her mentor. "Tyler," Brianna said during one of her visits, "I want to be like you when I grow up." "What do you mean?" "I want to help other kids too. Can you teach me?" "Of course, but first you need to study hard and graduate." "I will study, and one day I'll have a company just like your father's." Brianna's determination reminded Tyler so much of himself that he decided to personally oversee her development, becoming a kind of mentor to her. 5 years after their first meeting in the hangar, Tyler Williams Parker had become a national reference in social entrepreneurship. At 17, he managed projects serving over 1,000 at-risk children across 5 states in the United States. Richard Thompson's company had grown exponentially, not just in profits but in the reputation for social responsibility it had gained. Clients preferred doing business with a company that demonstrated genuine concern for social issues. Michael Roberts, now a father of 3, the youngest was indeed named Tyler, had become one of the most respected directors in the company, known for his dedication and integrity. Robert Carver had been promoted to maintenance supervisor, proving that people can truly change when given support and opportunity. Mrs. Rose, at 73, still visited the company weekly, proud to have witnessed one of the most beautiful transformations she'd ever seen. One December afternoon, on the eve of the 5th anniversary of their meeting in the hangar, Richard called Tyler into his office for a special conversation. "Tyler, tomorrow marks 5 years since we met." "I know. I was thinking about that this morning. And what do you think when you look back?" "That 5 years ago I was a scared boy who didn't believe I could have a future. Today I'm a young man who believes I can change other people's futures." "And you have. Not just your own future, but hundreds of children's. That was only possible because you gave me a family and taught me that family is about caring for each other." It was the first time Tyler had addressed him as "you" instead of "sir," a shift that symbolized how their relationship had evolved from formal to genuinely paternal. "Tyler, I have a surprise for you." "What surprise?" Richard handed him a folder. "These are the transfer papers for 20% of the company in your name. You're officially my partner." Tyler looked at the documents in disbelief. "Dad, is this for real?" "Absolutely. You've proven you have the vision, integrity, and skill to be a business leader. And more importantly, your heart is in the right place." "But I'm still a minor." "That's why the documents take effect when you turn 18. Until then, I'll remain as the guardian of your rights." Tyler hugged Richard tightly, too emotional to speak. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Thank you for saving me that day in the hangar, and for continuing to save me every day since then." That night, father and son had dinner together, as they had every Friday for the past 5 years. But this time they weren't just celebrating a family tradition, they were celebrating a new chapter in their lives. "Dad, can I tell you my biggest dream now?" "Of course." "I want our company to become a global leader in social responsibility. I want people to think of us when they think of ethical business." "And how do you plan to do that?" by expanding our projects to other countries, showing that it's possible to be profitable and socially responsible at the same time. Tyler, you're only 17 and already thinking like a global CEO. I learned from the best. The international expansion project began immediately. Tyler started studying other languages and international social responsibility models, preparing to take the company's philosophy abroad. Brianna, now 15, had become Tyler's special protégé. She attended one of the best schools in New York and spent weekends at the company, learning about management and social projects. Tyler, when I turn 18, can I work with you? If you want to and prove you're capable, of course. I'll prove it, just like you proved it to your dad. Brianna's determination reminded Tyler so much of himself that he had no doubt she'd succeed in anything she set her mind to. In June 2024, 6 years after the meeting in the hangar, Tyler turned 18 at a party that brought together everyone who had been part of his journey. Richard, Mrs. Rose, Michael and his family, Robert and his daughter Brianna, and many other children who had been helped by the company's projects. During his thank you speech, Tyler reflected on the journey. 6 years ago, I was a street kid who thought the world had no place for me. Today, I'm a partner in a company that creates places in the world for kids who feel the way I did. This was only possible because someone decided I was worth it. Now our mission is to make sure every child feels valued and knows they have the potential to change the world. The party was interrupted by a special call. It was the president of a major American corporation interested in implementing Tyler's social projects in the United States. Mr. Thompson, we've heard about the exceptional work you're doing in the US. We'd like to discuss a partnership to implement similar projects here. Tyler looked at Richard, who smiled and gestured for him to take the call. Good evening. This is Tyler Thompson, Director of Social Projects for the company. Mr. Tyler, it's an honor to speak with you. We've heard about your work and would like to invite you to a meeting in New York. The honor is mine. When would you like to meet? After scheduling the meeting for the following month, Tyler hung up, his eyes shining with excitement. Dad, I think our company is about to go international. Not our company, Tyler. Your leadership is about to go international. Tyler's first international trip was a milestone in his life. At 18, he presented the American model of social responsibility to executives who were impressed by the efficiency and results of the projects. During his presentation in New York, Tyler shared his own story as an example of how investing in human capital can yield exponential returns. Gentlemen, 6 years ago I was a cost to society. I was a social problem. Today I generate income, pay taxes, and help hundreds of other children escape the same situation. That's the power of believing in human potential. The presentation resulted in a consulting contract worth millions of dollars to implement similar social projects in the United States, with Tyler as the international director of the project. Back in the US, news of the international expansion made headlines in the national media. Tyler graced the covers of several business magazines and was invited to television shows to share his story. In a memorable interview, the host asked, Tyler, what was the turning point in your life? When my father decided to trust a street kid no one took seriously. That moment didn't just change my life, it changed the lives of thousands of children our projects help. And what message do you have for young people going through hardships? That it's never too late to start over, that everyone has the potential to transform their reality, and that there are people willing to help. You just can't give up looking. The interview sparked hundreds of calls from people wanting to volunteer for the projects or share their own stories of overcoming adversity. Richard watched with paternal pride as his son had become an inspiration to millions, always staying humble and committed to social causes. Tyler, you've exceeded all my expectations, and trust me, they were high. Dad, I just became what you always believed I could be. No, Tyler. You've become far more than I ever dreamed. In December 2024, 7 years after the hangar meeting, Tyler was invited to speak at the graduation ceremony for a business administration class at one of the country's top universities. At 19, he was the youngest commencement speaker in the institution's history. During his speech, He spoke about the importance of using academic knowledge to transform social realities. Dear graduates, today you receive a diploma representing years of study and dedication. But this diploma isn't just a certificate of technical competence, it's a social responsibility. You have the knowledge and tools to change the world. The question is, how will you use that power? The speech was well received and led to multiple invitations for Tyler to speak at other universities across the country. Brianna, now 16, watched the speech and felt even more inspired to follow her mentor's example. Tyler, one day I want to give a speech like yours. You will, Brianna. And it'll be even better because you'll have your own story to tell. What story? The story of a girl who left an orphanage and became a business leader. Your journey will inspire millions. Tyler had complete faith in Brianna's abilities and had already begun preparing her to take on responsibilities in the company's social projects. By 2025, 8 years after the life-changing meeting, Richard and Tyler celebrated not only their family's anniversary, but also the fact that their social projects had helped over 10,000 children escape vulnerable situations. The company had expanded to 3 countries and become a global benchmark for corporate social responsibility. At 20, Tyler was internationally recognized as one of the most influential young leaders of his generation. But despite all the success, he never forgot his roots. Every year on the anniversary of the hangar meeting, he visited the streets where he had once lived to distribute food and talk to children facing circumstances like his own. "Why do you do this?" asked a journalist who accompanied him on one of these visits. "So I never forget where I came from. And to show these kids there's hope. If I made it out, they can too." During one of these visits, Tyler met a 12-year-old boy named Peter, who had recently lost his parents and was living alone on the streets. "Do you have somewhere to sleep?" Tyler asked. "Sometimes, when it rains a lot, I sleep in the building alcove over there." "And do you eat every day?" "When I'm lucky." The conversation with Peter deeply moved Tyler, reminding him of himself at 12. He decided right then that he would do something special for that boy. "Peter, would you like a different opportunity?" "What do you mean?" "A chance to study, have a home, a family." "That exists." "It does. It happened to me." Tyler told his story to Peter, who listened intently with growing hope. "And you'd do that for me?" "I would. But it would have to be like it was for me. You'd have to study, work hard, and one day help other kids too." "I accept." Richard, who had been listening to the whole conversation, smiled as he saw his son repeating with Peter the same act of kindness that had changed his own life. "Tyler, are you sure?" "Absolutely. Peter reminds me of myself at 12, and if our family can help another child, then let's take him home." Peter was the second child adopted by Richard and Tyler. At 12, he showed the same intelligence and determination Tyler had displayed, quickly adapting to his new life and showing a special interest in technology. "Tyler, do you really think I can be like you?" "Peter, you can be better than me. You have all the opportunities I had, plus the advantage of starting earlier." "What about Brianna? Won't she be jealous of me?" "Brianna is already 17 and practically my sister. She'll help you adjust." Indeed, Brianna welcomed Peter with maternal warmth, helping him with his studies and adjusting to his new life. The 3 young people formed a unique family, bound not by blood, but by shared experiences and a common purpose. One December night in 2025, 9 years after the meeting in the hangar, Richard watched his 3 children studying together at the dinner table. Tyler, now 21 and a full partner in the company, Brianna, 17 and preparing for college in business administration, and Peter, 13 and already showing a special talent for programming. "Rose," he said over the phone to his old friend, "can you believe what's happened to our family?" "Mr. Richard, in over 50 years with your family, I've never seen anything more beautiful than what you've built. It all started with Tyler saving me from that sabotage." "No, sir. It all started with you having the courage to trust a boy no one took seriously. Rose, do you think my father would approve of what we've done?" "Mr. Richard, your father always said a man's success is measured by what he leaves behind. You've left 3 extraordinary children and thousands of kids with a better future. Of course he'd approve. That same night, Tyler made an announcement that surprised the family. "Dad, Brianna, Peter, I have news." "What?" they all asked at once. "I've been invited to be the Director of Social Responsibility for the world's largest multinational corporation. The job would be in Geneva, Switzerland." The table fell silent. It was an incredible opportunity, but it would mean the family would be separated. "Tyler," Richard said, "this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. You should take it. But it means being away from you all." "For a while," Brianna said. "But think of the impact you could have on a global scale." Peter, ever practical, asked the question on everyone's mind. "What if we all went too?" The suggestion took everyone by surprise. "What do you mean?" Richard asked. "We could open a European office for our company. That way we stay together and expand our projects." Tyler looked at Peter with admiration. At 13, the boy already thought strategically like a businessman. "Peter is right," said Brianna. "Our family has always worked better together." Richard reflected on the proposal. At 55, he had built a solid life in the United States, but the idea of a new adventure with his children was tempting. "You know what? Let's try it. If it doesn't work out, we'll come back to the United States." The decision to move to Europe was made as a family, with everyone contributing to the planning. Tyler accepted the position in Geneva, while the family established an office for their American company in Switzerland. The move represented a new chapter in the Thompson family's life, but the values and principles that had guided their journey remained the same. On his last night in the United States, Tyler visited the hangar alone, where he had met Richard 9 years earlier. The place had become a symbol of transformation in his life. "Thank you," he said aloud, speaking to the memory of his mother and to the fate that had brought Richard into his path on that crucial day. His phone rang. It was Richard, who had gone out looking for him. "Tyler, where are you?" "At the hangar, Dad. I came to say goodbye." "Goodbye to what?" "To the place where it all began. To the scared boy I was and will never be again." "Tyler, you weren't saying goodbye. You were preparing to take flight." The Thompson family arrived in Geneva in January 2026. The adjustment was challenging, but their family bond helped them overcome every difficulty. Tyler took on his role at the multinational corporation and immediately began implementing innovative social projects that combined business efficiency with genuine social impact. Peter, fascinated by European technology, developed an app connecting vulnerable children with families willing to help, creating a global support network. Brianna was accepted into Europe's top business school and began developing her thesis on social entrepreneurship in developing countries. Richard established the European office of their American company and found that the international experience was giving new energy to his career. 2 years later, in 2028, the Thompson family had become a global reference in social responsibility. Their projects served children in 15 countries, and Tyler had become the youngest director of social responsibility in the history of multinational corporations. At a special ceremony held at the United Nations headquarters, Tyler received the Young Global Leader of the Year award for his work in combating child poverty. During his acceptance speech, he spoke about the importance of family and second chances. "This award isn't mine. It belongs to everyone who believed in me when I was just a street kid with no apparent future. It belongs to my father, who had the courage to trust in the impossible. It belongs to my siblings, who inspire me every day. And it belongs to all the children we serve who remind me daily why we do what we do." In the audience, Richard, Brianna, and Peter applauded with tears in their eyes, proud of the man Tyler had become. After the ceremony, the family dined at a special restaurant in New York to celebrate. "Dad," Tyler said, "do you remember what you told me on the first day we met?" "What?" "That I had saved your life. Today, I can say you saved far more than my life. You saved my soul and gave me purpose. Tyler, you gave my life purpose too. Before you came, I lived only for work. Now I live for family and for something greater than ourselves." Brianna chimed in. And me? Where do I fit into this story? You, Tyler said, are proof that our family never stops growing and that love has no limits. Peter, now 16 and already showing natural leadership, made an observation that touched everyone. You know what's most amazing about our family? What? They all asked. That each of us was saved by someone who had also been saved. Dad saved Tyler, Tyler saved me, and Brianna was saved by her godmother. It's like goodness is contagious. Peter's reflection perfectly captured the essence of the Thompson family, a virtuous circle of people who had been helped and who dedicated their lives to helping others. That night, in his New York hotel room, Tyler looked out the window at the city that never sleeps and reflected on his journey. From a street kid with no prospects to a recognized global leader, his life had been a series of everyday miracles built on trust, hard work, and family love. He picked up his phone and called Mrs. Rose, who now lived in a luxurious retirement home funded by the company but still had a sharp mind at 80. Mrs. Rose, it's Tyler. My dear, I saw you on TV receiving the award. I'm so proud. Mrs. Rose, do you remember how it all started? How could I forget? A scruffy boy showed up at the hangar saying the plane had been sabotaged. It sounded crazy at the time. And now? Now I know it was the sanest thing I've ever witnessed. You didn't just save the company, you saved the soul of all of us. Mrs. Rose, can I make a confession? Of course, dear. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and have to pinch myself to make sure this is all real. Tyler, that proves you've never lost your humility. And that's why you keep deserving every blessing you receive. After the call, Tyler wrote in his personal journal, a habit he'd developed to record important moments. Today, I received the highest honor of my professional career. But the greatest reward of my life was finding a family that loves me unconditionally. 12 years ago, I was a lost boy who didn't believe in miracles. Today, I know miracles happen every day, sometimes disguised as people who choose to trust when there's no logical reason to. By 2030, 15 years after the meeting that changed their lives, the Thompson family had become a global institution in social responsibility. Richard, now 60, had retired from the company's daily operations, dedicating himself to writing a book about his experience as an adoptive father. Tyler, 26, led a network of social organizations serving over 100,000 children in 30 countries. He had married an American humanitarian doctor and was expecting their first child. Brianna, 25, had become CEO of the company's European branch and was recognized as one of the world's most promising young executives. Peter, 21, had developed a tech platform connecting donors with social projects in real time, revolutionizing global philanthropy. At a special family gathering in Geneva, Richard made an exciting announcement. I have a proposal for you. What? The three children asked in unison. How about we create a family foundation to carry on our work for future generations? How so? Tyler asked. A foundation that ensures our social projects continue even after we're gone, that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren grow up knowing they have a responsibility to care for the less fortunate. The idea thrilled everyone. In the following months, they worked together to create the Thompson Foundation, an organization combining the company's resources with social projects, ensuring long-term sustainability for the work they'd built. On the day of the official inauguration of the foundation, held simultaneously in New York, Geneva, and New York, Tyler gave a speech that summarized the philosophy that had guided the family over the years. The Thompson Foundation is born from a simple premise: every child deserves an opportunity. Our family was built on this belief, and our mission is to ensure that future generations have access to the same opportunities that transformed our lives. In the audience in New York, Michael Roberts, now with teenage children, watched the ceremony with emotion. His own children had grown up hearing the story of how Tyler had saved his family, and now they volunteered in the Foundation's projects. Robert Carver, who had become one of the most respected employees of the American company, brought his 15-year-old daughter to watch the ceremony. Dad, the girl said, did you really sabotage Mr. Richards' plane? I did. It was the worst mistake of my life. But if you hadn't done it, Tyler would never have met Mr. Richard. Robert reflected on his daughter's observation. It was true that his sabotage had been the catalyst that brought Richard and Tyler together, changing not only their lives but also those of thousands of others. Sometimes, he said, the bad things we do can lead to greater good. But that doesn't justify the mistake. It just shows that God can bring good out of evil. After the ceremony, the Thompson family gathered at a Brazilian restaurant in New York for an intimate celebration. It was the first time in 2 years that everyone was together in the country where it all began. "Dad," Peter said, "can I ask you something?" "Always. If you could go back in time to that day in the hangar, would you change anything?" Richard thought carefully before answering. "I'd change just one thing." "What?" "I would have believed Tyler sooner. I lost a few minutes hesitating because he was just a street kid. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have listened to him right away." Tyler smiled. "Dad, those minutes of hesitation were important. They taught me that I had to prove my worth, not just expect people to believe in me." "How so?" "If you'd believed me immediately, I might have thought it was luck, but having to convince you, I learned I had to work to earn trust." Tyler's perspective on how those early challenges had shaped his character impressed the whole family. Brianna made an observation that touched everyone. "You know what amazes me most about our family?" "What?" "That we never stop growing, not just in numbers, but in our ability to love and help." "How so?" Richard asked. "We started with you and Tyler. Then came me and Peter. Now we have a baby on the way, the social projects, the foundation. It's like love keeps multiplying endlessly." Brianna's reflection perfectly captured the essence of the Thompson family, an ever-expanding entity, always open to including new people and embracing new causes. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Richard and Tyler stayed awake talking on the hotel terrace, watching the city of New York glowing in the distance. "Tyler, do you have any regrets?" "Just one." "What?" "Not getting to know my birth mother better. Sometimes I wonder what she'd think of all this." "She'd be proud. Any mother would be proud to have a son like you." "What about you, Dad? Any regrets?" "None. Every mistake I made, every hardship we faced, brought us here. If we changed anything, we might not have ended up where we are." Tyler looked at his father with renewed admiration. "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" "Always." "When I was little and living on the streets, sometimes I'd look at the lit-up buildings like these and dream of having a family inside one of them. I never imagined that one day I'd be looking at these same buildings with the best family in the world. And now when you look at them, what do you think? I think about how many children are down there on the streets, dreaming what I once dreamed, and I think about how we can reach every single one of them." The conversation was interrupted by an international call. It was the president of an African foundation interested in implementing the Thompson family's projects on the African continent. "Mr. Tyler, we've heard about the extraordinary work you do. We'd like to discuss a partnership to support vulnerable children in Africa." After the call, father and son exchanged knowing smiles. "I think our next adventure will be in Africa," said Tyler. "I think our adventure will never end," replied Richard. In 2035, 20 years after the encounter that changed their lives, the Thompson family had become a global reference, not just in social responsibility, but in showing how families can be formed through love rather than just blood. Tyler, now a father of 3, divided his time between running the foundation and teaching his children the importance of helping others. His wife, Dr. Sarah Williams, had joined the family mission, leading the foundation's health projects. Brianna had married a French humanitarian engineer and lived in Geneva, overseeing the foundation's European operations. She was pregnant with her second child. Peter had graduated in technology and developed a series of apps that revolutionized how social organizations operated. He had founded his own social tech company. Richard, now 70, had become a loving grandfather and a respected writer. His book, The Family I Chose, had become an international bestseller, inspiring thousands of adoptive families. At a special family gathering in New York to celebrate the 20th anniversary of their meeting in the hangar, every member of the extended family was present. Michael and his family, Robert and his daughter, many children who had been helped by their projects over the years, and even Mrs. Rose, now 90, but still sharp and engaged. During the celebration, Tyler gave an emotional speech. 20 years ago, a desperate street kid saved a businessman from sabotage. Today, that rescue has multiplied into tens of thousands of other rescues, children off the streets, families reunited, people discovering their potential, all because someone chose to believe when there was no logical reason to. Richard stood to respond. Tyler, you say I believed in you, but the truth is, you taught me to believe. Before you, I thought success was about money and power. You showed me that true success is about relationships and making a difference in people's lives. Peter, now a 26-year-old entrepreneur, made an observation that moved everyone. Our family proves that miracles exist and that they happen every day. Every child off the streets is a miracle. Every family formed through love is a miracle. Every person who discovers their potential is a miracle. Brianna, holding her 2-year-old daughter, added, "And the most beautiful part is that these miracles are contagious. Every life we transform goes on to transform others. It's a chain reaction of good that never stops growing." That night, after the celebration, Tyler walked alone to the hangar where it had all begun. The place had been preserved and turned into a memorial for the foundation, with plaques telling the story of how one chance encounter had changed thousands of lives. Richard found him there, gazing at the spot where their lives had intersected 2 decades earlier. "What are you thinking about?" Richard asked. "I'm thinking about what the world would be like if everyone gave a chance to someone nobody takes seriously. It would be a better world, a world where there would be no homeless children because there would always be someone willing to lend a hand. Tyler, can I tell you something I've never shared before?" "Of course, Dad." "That day in the hangar, when you warned me about the sabotage, I almost didn't believe you. Not because you were a street kid, but because I was so focused on my own problems that I nearly missed the chance to save my life and meet my son. But you did believe me, and that made all the difference. Tyler, do you know the exact moment I realized you would be my son? When? When you refused money and only asked for food. In that instant, I knew I'd found someone with values money couldn't buy." The two sat in thoughtful silence for a few minutes, absorbing the magnitude of the journey they'd shared. 3 months after this conversation, something unexpected happened that would once again test the strength of the Thompson family. Tyler received a call that would change the course of their lives yet again. "Tyler, this is Dr. Marina Sanders from the Washington Social Research Institute." "Good afternoon, Doctor. How can I help you?" "We're conducting a study on American families who've found success through adoption, and your family is our primary case study." "I'm honored, but what's the goal of the research?" "We want to propose a national public policy based on your family's model. The federal government is interested in implementing a corporate adoption program across the country." The call left Tyler both excited and concerned. The idea of expanding the model nationwide was tempting, but he worried that bureaucracy might compromise the human essence that made their projects effective. That evening, during their family dinner over video call, a tradition they maintained even while living in different countries, Tyler shared the proposal. "This could be amazing," exclaimed Peter, who was calling from London, where he ran the European office of his tech company. "But also risky," noted Brianna, joining from Geneva. "When the government gets involved, things can lose their agility and personal touch." Richard, wise at 70, asked a fundamental question. "Tyler, what would our role be in this national program?" "We'd be the lead consultants developing guidelines and training teams." "And how long would that take?" "At least 5 years to implement nationwide." 5 years is a long time away from hands-on projects," Brianna pointed out. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Tyler hesitated. The opportunity to impact millions of children through public policy was tempting, but it would mean less time for the practical projects he was passionate about. "Can I suggest an alternative?" Peter said. "What?" "What if we created a dedicated team to work with the government while keeping our direct projects running?" "Is that division possible?" Richard asked. "With our current structure, yes," Brianna replied. I could coordinate the government side from Europe, Peter would handle the tech, and Tyler could stay focused on the practical projects. The family's solution to this complex challenge once again showed how the Thompsons worked best when united. 2 months later, the proposal was presented to the US government in a historic ceremony at the White House. Tyler, accompanied by Richard, Brianna, and Peter, introduced a program that could lift 100,000 children out of social vulnerability in 5 years. During the presentation, Tyler shared his own story as proof of the model's success. Mr. President, honorable officials, 20 years ago, I was just a statistic, one of millions of at-risk American children. Today, I'm here proposing a program that can transform the reality of children going through what I went through. The president, impressed by the proposal's clarity and consistency, approved the program in the same meeting. Mr. Tyler, the United States needs examples like yours. Consider the program approved. The news made national headlines. The Thompson family had managed to turn their personal experience into public policy that would benefit generations of American children. In the following months, as the program was implemented, something unexpected happened. Tyler began receiving letters from people sharing how his story had inspired changes in their own lives. One letter in particular moved him deeply. It was from a businesswoman in Boston named Sandra Oliver. Dear Tyler, my name is Sandra, and I run a tech company in Boston. After seeing your interview on television, I decided to adopt a 12-year-old girl who lived in a shelter here in the city. Today, 3 years later, my daughter Marina is among the top students in her school and already talks about running a business when she grows up. I wanted to thank you for showing that family is about love, not blood. Stories like Sandra's arrived daily, proving the Thompson family's example was inspiring others across the country. Dad, Tyler said during one of their nightly talks, I think our greatest success wasn't the social projects, but proving that non-traditional families can be just as strong as traditional ones. Why do you say that? Because we're getting hundreds of letters from families formed through adoption after hearing our story. That means our impact goes far beyond our direct projects. Richard smiled, proud of his son's insight. Tyler, do you remember what I said when I adopted you? That you were the best thing that ever happened to me. I do. Now I can say you become the best thing to happen to thousands of others too. In 2040, 25 years after the hangar meeting, the Thompson family received the highest honor of their lives. They were collectively nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for their work in fighting child poverty and promoting adoptive families. The nomination ceremony took place in Oslo, Norway, with the entire family present. It was the first time in history that an entire family had been nominated together. During the nomination acceptance speech, Tyler spoke on behalf of the family. Your Majesties, ladies and gentlemen, this nomination isn't ours. It belongs to every child who taught us that a person's true worth lies not in their origin, but in their potential. It belongs to every family formed through love, proving that blood isn't the only bond that unites people. In the audience, tears streamed down every family member's face. Richard, now 75, watched with indescribable emotion as the boy who had saved his life had become an inspiration to the world. After the ceremony, the family gathered for an intimate dinner at a traditional Norwegian restaurant. It was a moment to reflect on the extraordinary journey they had taken together. Dad, said Brianna, now a mother of 3, can I ask something I've always wondered? Of course, sweetheart. Did you ever regret adopting so many children, changing your life so much because of us? The question touched Richard deeply. Brianna, before you all came into my life, I had an empty existence disguised as success. I had money, power, professional recognition, but no purpose. You gave me far more than I ever gave you. Peter, now married and a father of twins, added, Dad, I remember when I first came home. I was so afraid I wouldn't be accepted. And why did you feel that way? Because I thought family was something for special people, not for street kids like I was. And what do you think now? That family is for people who choose to love one another, and that choice is what makes a family special. The conversation was interrupted by a call from Sarah, Tyler's wife, who had stayed in the United States taking care of their children. "Tyler, turn on the TV. There's a special report about our family on Global News Network." The family gathered around the restaurant's television to watch the report. The hour-long program told the full story of the Thompson family, from the meeting in the hangar to the Nobel nomination. The most moving part of the report was an interview with some of the children who had been helped by the family's projects over the years. Many of them were now successful adults who had started their own social initiatives. Brianna Sanders, the girl from the orphanage Tyler had met 20 years earlier, appeared in the report as the director of an organization serving orphaned children. "Tyler taught me that being an orphan didn't mean I was destined for failure. He showed me I could use my experience to help other kids. Today I serve over 500 children in orphanages across the United States." The report also interviewed Michael Roberts, who spoke about how the second chance he received had transformed his life. "When I sabotaged Richard's plane, I thought my life was over. But the Thompson family taught me that mistakes don't define who we are. What defines us is how we respond to those mistakes." At the end of the report, the anchor made an observation that deeply moved the family. The story of the Thompson family proves that one person can truly change the world, but it also proves something even more important, that the world can change a person. Tyler saved Richard from sabotage, but Richard saved Tyler from the streets. And together they saved thousands of others. That night in the Oslo hotel, Tyler wrote in his journal a reflection on the 25 years that had passed. "Today, our family was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's surreal to think that a street kid who just wanted to survive another day would become part of a family nominated for the world's highest humanitarian honor. But even more surreal is imagining how many other families like ours could exist if more people had the courage to believe in the impossible." 3 months later, the announcement that moved the entire world came. The Thompson family had won the Nobel Peace Prize. It was the first time in history that an entire family had received the award. The ceremony took place in December, with representatives from over 100 countries in attendance. Tyler, as the most articulate member of the family, was chosen to give the acceptance speech. "Your Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen," Tyler began, visibly emotional. "This prize represents far more than recognition of our family's work. It represents the hope that the world can be a better place when we choose to believe in human potential. 25 years ago, I was a 12-year-old boy living on the streets of New York. I had no family, no prospects, no hope. Today, I stand before you because someone decided to believe in me when there was no logical reason to. My father, Richard Thompson, taught me that family isn't just about who gave us life, but about who chooses to share life with us. My siblings, Brianna and Peter, taught me that love multiplies when it's shared. And the thousands of children we've helped over the years have taught me that we all have the power to change the world, one act of kindness at a time. This prize is not ours. It belongs to all those who believe that every child deserves a chance. It belongs to all those who choose to reach out rather than look away. It belongs to all those who know that building a family is about choosing to love, not about accidents of birth." On behalf of the Thompson family, we dedicate this award to all the children in the world still waiting for someone to believe in them. Our mission doesn't end here. In fact, it's only just beginning. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. On stage, the Thompson family embraced, moved by the global recognition of 25 years of work dedicated to transforming lives. After the ceremony, during the traditional gala celebration, Richard approached Tyler for a conversation that would forever be etched in their memories. "Tyler, do you remember the first question you ever asked me when we met?" "I do. I asked if you were the father of the girl in room 507. "No, that was the second. The first was, 'Sir, you can't get on that plane.'" "That's right," Tyler smiled. "Feels like a lifetime ago." "And if you could go back to that moment, would you change anything?" Tyler thought carefully before answering. "I wouldn't change a thing. Every hardship, every challenge, every moment of uncertainty brought us here. If we changed anything, we might not have ended up where we are. Not even those nights you spent cold and hungry on the streets? Not even those." because they taught me to value every opportunity, every act of kindness, every moment with family. Richard hugged his son with tears in his eyes. Tyler, you've become the most extraordinary man I know, and more importantly, you've become the father your children deserve. I learned from the best example. That night, in his hotel room in Oslo, Tyler called Sarah and their children back in the United States to share the historic moment. "Daddy won the Nobel Prize," the children shouted excitedly, even if they didn't fully grasp the magnitude of the event. "No, my loves," Tyler corrected. "Our family won, and that means you're Nobel Peace Prize winners too." "So what do we do now, Us?" asked Peter, his oldest at 8 years old. "We keep doing what we've always done, helping other children find their families. Like how you found Grandpa Richard." "Exactly, and how Grandpa Richard found me." After the call, Tyler went for a walk alone through the streets of Oslo. It was his tradition. Whenever something significant happened in his life, he walked alone to reflect and speak silently with his birth mother. "Mom," he thought, gazing at the starry sky, "I hope you're proud. The boy you raised with so much love, even with so little, has today received the greatest prize in the world for those who work for peace. I've never forgotten your lessons. When you said character is what we do when no one's watching, when you said family is who stands by us when things get hard, all of that shaped who I became. Thank you for teaching me to dream, even when there was no reason to hope. Thank you for planting in me the seeds of kindness that blossomed into an extraordinary family." The next morning, the Thompson family attended a press conference with journalists from around the world. One question in particular moved Tyler deeply. "Mr. Tyler, what message would you like to share with families considering adoption?" "Don't be afraid," Tyler answered. "Afraid the child won't accept you, afraid you won't know how to raise them, afraid the love won't be returned. True love overcomes all those fears." Brianna added, "And to the children still waiting for a family, we want to say, don't stop dreaming. There's a family out there somewhere waiting for you. They may not be the biological parents you lost, but they can be the parents your heart needs." Peter concluded. "And for the business owners thinking about developing social projects, do it. Not for marketing or corporate responsibility, but because it's the right thing to do. The return doesn't just come in profits, but in purpose and personal fulfillment." Richard, as the family patriarch, made the final remark. 25 years ago, I was a successful but empty businessman. Today, I am a fulfilled man because I discovered that true success isn't measured by what we accumulate, but by what we share." After the interview, the family headed back home, each to their country of residence, but all carrying the certainty that they had made history not just for themselves, but for millions of families around the world. On the flight back to the United States, Tyler looked out the window and smiled at the clouds. He remembered a phrase his biological mother used to say, "The clouds may cover the sun for a while, but it always shines again." 25 years earlier, the clouds of poverty and abandonment had covered his life. Now the sun of family and purpose shone not only on his life, but on the lives of thousands of others touched by the work of the Thompson family. When he arrived home in Chicago, he was greeted by Sarah and their 3 children with a surprise party. The house was decorated with flags from all the countries where the Thompson family ran social projects. "Daddy," said Emma, his 6-year-old daughter, "are you famous now?" "No, sweetheart. We're a family that does important work, and you're part of that work too." "How am I part of it?" "By being a kind girl, studying to be smart, and always remembering to help those in need. Like how you helped when you were little." "No, Emma. When I was little, I was the one who needed help. But kind people like you and your mom helped me become who I am today." That night during family dinner, Sarah asked a question that made Tyler reflect deeply. "Tyler, after all we've achieved, what's your next dream?" "My next dream is to see our children grow up knowing they have the responsibility to continue the work we started. I want them to understand they were born into a privileged family, not just to benefit themselves, but to benefit others. And if they choose different paths, I'll support them completely, but I'm sure that no matter what profession they choose, they'll carry the values of family and solidarity we've tried to teach. Tommy, always observant, asked a question that surprised his parents. "Daddy, why do you and Grandpa Richard always cry when you talk about each other?" Tyler smiled, searching for an explanation a child could understand. "Because sometimes we feel so much love for someone that it overflows through our eyes. It's not sadness, it's just a lot of joy. Like when I get really happy at Christmas? Exactly like when you get really happy at Christmas." In 2045, 30 years after the meeting that changed their lives, Richard Thompson passed away at 80, surrounded by his family, at peace and certain he had lived a full and meaningful life. The funeral was a celebration of a man who had transformed not only his own existence, but also the lives of thousands. Representatives from all the countries where the family ran projects were present, along with hundreds of children and adults impacted by their work. During the eulogy, Tyler spoke about his father's legacy. Richard Thompson was many things: a successful businessman, a recognized philanthropist, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. But to me, he was simply the best father a child could have. He taught me that family is about choice, that success is about impact, and that love is about giving without expecting anything in return. My father lived 80 extraordinary years, but the last 30, which we spent together as a family, were what gave true meaning to his life. He always said I had saved his life that day in the hangar. Today, I can say he saved far more than my life. He saved my soul and gave me purpose. Richard Thompson's legacy isn't in the buildings he constructed or the deals he closed. It's in every child he took off the streets, in every family formed through love, in every person who learned that it's possible to change the world one act of kindness at a time. After the funeral, the family gathered at Richard's home to read a letter he had left to be opened only after his passing. "My dear children, Tyler, Brianna, and Peter, if you're reading this letter, it means my journey in this world has come to an end. But don't be sad, because I've lived more than many men do in several lifetimes." When Tyler appeared in that hangar 30 years ago, I thought I knew what success was. I discovered I knew nothing. You taught me that true success is the love we leave in the world and the lives we touch for the better. Tyler, my first son, thank you for saving me not just from sabotage, but from the empty life I was living. You gave me purpose and taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. Brianna, my daughter in heart, thank you for showing me that an orphaned girl can become a global leader and that determination knows no limits of age or background. Peter, my youngest, thank you for teaching me that technology only has value when it serves humanity, and that innovation without compassion is just wasted intelligence. My final request is that you continue the work we began. May the Thompson Foundation keep growing and impacting lives for generations. May our grandchildren and great-grandchildren grow up knowing they have a responsibility to care for the less fortunate. And above all, may you never forget that family is about choice, love is about giving, and that every child deserves a chance to be happy. With all my eternal love, Dad Richard. The reading of the letter left everyone emotional, but also strengthened in their determination to carry on the legacy Richard had helped build. In the following years, the family faced the challenge of keeping their organization united and strong without the paternal figure who had always been their anchor. Tyler officially took over as president of the Thompson Foundation, Brianna became the executive director, and Peter led the technological modernization of all their projects. Together, they not only preserved Richard's legacy, but expanded its reach even further. By 2050, 35 years after the meeting in the hangar, the Thompson Foundation had become the largest child protection organization in the world, operating in 50 countries and rescuing over 1 million children from vulnerable situations. During a special ceremony in New York to mark the family's 35 years, Tyler, now 47, gave a speech that summed up their journey. 35 years ago, a street kid saved a businessman from sabotage. Today, that salvation has multiplied into millions of others. Children who found families, families who discovered true love. Societies that learned investing in children is investing in the future. My father always said, a man's success is measured by what he leaves behind. Looking back, I can say he left far more than he ever imagined. He left behind a family that chose love as its foundation, an organization that puts children first, and a legacy proving that one life can truly make a difference. But our journey doesn't end here. As long as there's a child in need of a family in need of guidance, or a person in need of hope, we'll be here. Because that's the legacy we've chosen to carry forward. On behalf of the Thompson family, on behalf of all the children we've helped, and on behalf of my father Richard, I promise we'll keep believing in the impossible, transforming lives, and proving that love is the most powerful force in the universe. The end. Now, tell me what you thought of this heartwarming story of transformation and family love. Do you believe the power of love can truly change lives, just as it did for Tyler and Richard? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're following us from. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other inspiring stories like this one.